Tomorrow, you die. Not maybe, not possibly. Tomorrow. You know it. The crowd knows it. The man they will put in front of you has killed 11 people. You have killed 9. One of you will not leave that sand alive. So what do you do tonight? Do you pray? Do you drink? Do you sit in the dark and think about everyone you will never see again? This is not a hypothetical. This happened. Every single night for 300 years, men sat in the cells beneath the Colosseum and answered that exact question. And what they did will completely change how you see what it means to be human. The Colosseum held 80,000 people. 80,000. That is not a stadium. That is a city watching you bleed. And the men who fought there were not soldiers. They were not volunteers. Most of them were slaves, prisoners of war, condemned criminals who had been handed a sword and told that the only way out was through. But here's what nobody tells you. By the time most gladiators stepped onto that sand, they did not want to escape. They wanted to win. And the night before the fight was how they made sure of it. It started with a meal, not bread, not water, not whatever scraps you imagine prisoners eating, a feast. The Romans called it the cena libera, the free dinner. It was open to the public. Citizens would come and watch the gladiators eat. They would crowd around the tables and stare at these men the way you stare at something you cannot quite believe is real. Some gladiators ignored them completely. They ate, they focused, they talked quietly with the men who trained with them, the men who knew exactly how they moved, exactly where their weaknesses were, exactly what they would need to survive the next day. Others performed. They laughed loudly, they threw food, they made jokes about dying, because making a joke about dying is the oldest way humans have ever found to pretend they are not afraid. And some of them wept, openly, without shame, because tomorrow was tomorrow, and tonight was the last night they were certain of, and the food was extraordinary, and the wine was real, and somewhere out there was a person they loved and would probably never touch again. The Romans watching did not look away. This was part of the spectacle, the feast before the fight, the last human moment before the machine took over. After the meal came the preparation. Gladiators did not fight dirty. This surprises people. They were the most medically cared for athletes in the ancient world. They had doctors. They had trainers called doctores, who had often been gladiators themselves. They had a structured diet, a recovery program, and access to medical treatment that most Roman citizens could not afford. Because a dead gladiator was worthless. A living gladiator who could fight again next month was an investment. So the night before a fight, those trainers would come to the cells. They would check every joint, every muscle, every old injury. They would apply medicines. They would wrap hands and wrists with leather. They would make sure that the body going onto that sand tomorrow was in the best possible condition to survive. This was not kindness. This was economics. But the gladiators did not care about the reason. They cared about the result. And the result was that they went into the most dangerous moment of their lives, feeling, physically, as good as they possibly could. Then came the ritual. Every gladiator had one. We know this from the graffiti they left on the walls of their cells, from the amulets archaeologists have found in the ruins of gladiatorial schools across the Roman Empire, from the prayers scratched into stone by men who had nothing left to do but scratch. Some prayed to Mars, the god of war. Some prayed to Nemesis, the goddess of fate. Some prayed to gods that had no Roman name at all, gods from the countries they had been taken from, gods they carried in their memory because it was the only thing no one could take. One gladiator carved the same symbol into his cell wall before every single fight. Archaeologists found it repeated 11 times. He survived 11 fights. The 12th cell has no symbol. But here's the thing that will stay with you. Not the feast, not the doctors, not the prayers. The thing that will stay with you is this. Most gladiators did not die in the arena. The image you have, the crowd screaming for blood, the thumbs turning down, the sword falling, that happened, but it was not the norm. Killing a trained gladiator was expensive. The crowd often voted to spare the loser who had fought bravely. The editor, the man who paid for the games, would usually grant mercy because mercy was cheaper than replacing a dead fighter. The average gladiator fought 2 or 3 times a year. The average career lasted 5 to 7 years. Some retired, some bought their freedom. Some became trainers themselves, teaching the next generation of men how to survive the night before the fight. So what they were doing in those cells was not preparing to die. They were preparing to live. The The Colosseum was demolished piece by piece over centuries. Its stone was taken and used to build churches, palaces, bridges. The cells beneath it filled with dirt and silence. But before all of that, on thousands of ordinary nights, men sat in those rooms and did the most human things imaginable. They ate, they prayed, they held on to whatever they loved. They prepared their bodies as best they could. They found a way to close their eyes. And in the morning, they walked out into the light, into the noise, into 80,000 people screaming for blood or glory or both. And they fought, not because they had to, because by morning, after everything the night had given them, they were ready. You will never stand in the Colosseum. You will never hear 80,000 people. But you know what the night before feels like. The night before the thing that terrifies you. The night before the conversation you cannot avoid. The night before the moment that will change everything. And what you do in that night, what you eat, what you hold on to, what you whisper to whatever you believe in, that is not so different from what they did. 2,000 years apart, same darkness, same morning coming, same choice about how to meet it. You made it to the end. That means your brain found this worth remembering. Subscribe. New videos every week.